All right. Um, I have an article for us today. First, I know I have at least one person who cares about what I'm wearing. Still working out the kinks on how to do that with the chat stand. But until then, this is what I'm wearing. So, with that, let's get right to the article. Ohio Senate passes shameful bill that would force schools to out LGBTQ plus kids to their parents. Which is always awesome, right? Okay. So, let's get to the article because there's a Republican in who's the governor of Ohio, I I'm pretty sure he's going to sign it. I really am. But let's get to the article anyway. The Ohio Senate and House have now both passed a bill that would forcibly out LGBTQ plus students to their parents and also allow parents to opt their child out of sexuality content at school. Whatever the hell that means. House Bill 8 defines sexuality content as any oral or written instruction, presentation, image, or description of sexual concepts or gender ideology provided in a classroom setting. So, no more teaching kids how to put on a condom using a banana, I guess. Because what the hell? So, basically, they're outlawing sex ed. Because there's more than heterosexual sex involved, so obviously sex ed is bad or something. With exceptions granted for STI and abuse discussion, as well as incidental references to sexual concepts or gender ideology. So that's a loophole for educators. They can just say, "Oh, we didn't intend. That was just an incidental reference. That we weren't actually trying to teach these concepts." So basically, I mean, it's great that they think that abuse should be discussed and sexually transmitted diseases. But how the hell can you teach those things without teaching, like, how to use a condom or, you know, safe sex in general? I mean, I just don't see how you can differentiate the two. You can't separate them. That's the reason why sex ed started. It started because people want to, in the earlier grades, it was to teach kids the difference between good and bad touching, because not all parents do that. For those people who are like, well, the parents should teach that. Well, if you have a parent that is willing to teach you good and bad touching when you're a kid, and when you're older, teach you the birds and the bees, great. Not all parents are equipped or even motivated to teach such concepts, because a lot of parents just have kids for the status or have kids because their society tells them that that's what they're supposed to do, but really don't give a shit about their kids. So they want everyone else to raise their kids but them. So, yeah, there's all sorts of reasons. And then, of course, there's the whole parents are bigots, so they're not going to want to teach about or unable to teach about the fact that there's more to life than heterosexuality. There is homosexuality, there's bisexuality, there's pansexuality, there's asexuality. So parents aren't necessarily equipped to teach about the fact that humans don't just come in one flavor. unless they happen to be an educator and specifically teach sex ed. So, other than that, no. And I don't know what incidental references are, but like I said, sounds like a loophole. There is also a total ban on sexuality content in grades 3 and below, with all other grades facing a requirement for parental review of the content, because parents know better than educators what kids should learn. And again, sexuality content, well, nobody is teaching a third grader how to put a condom on a banana. What do you think they're teaching kids? That there's more than that mommy and daddy could be two daddies or two mommies? I don't see that as sexual content. That's normal. Kids that age do not think of their parents as having sex. And in the off chance they learn how babies are made, they're going to assume that their parents only did it once to have them, possibly twice if they have siblings, or how many siblings they have. But they're not going to be fixated on their parents' sex lives. I honestly don't know what sexual content that they're talking about. Like I said, I assume teaching kids that not everyone is heterosexual. It additionally requires notification of any substantial change to student services, whatever the heck that means, defined as including changes to one's gender identity in the school system. Notification to the parents. So basically, this is where we get to the title of this article, which is that the school will have to out the kids. So if you tell the school that even though you were born a girl, you identify as a boy, or vice versa, they have to tell the parents. Now, if your school has to tell you that your kid is trans, I'm going to say your kid doesn't feel comfortable telling you. And you should really question, is it safe to tell said parent? Now, sometimes kids are scared without evidence, and it turns out that the parents are just totally cool with it. Or that they become cool with it in short order because A, they don't want to lose their kid, or B, they just, came to a better understanding and realized that they're just freaking out because of what might happen. So, yeah. But if the parents of said student are raging transphobes in this case, all you're doing is putting the kid in a world of hurt. Literally, because they could be abusive to them, or they could end up kicking them out, and that might actually, in some cases, be a better option for the child if they have a place to go, if there are shelters, or if they have friends who are willing to let them stay there. But might be ever so slightly better than abuse, depending on what form the abuse takes. The abuse could take the form of verbal abuse, or it could take the form of physical abuse, which that's why I'm saying it could be slightly better to kick them out. It would still, either way, that parent is a shitty parent, but I'm not sure if kicking them out isn't better than, being abused. But anyway, either way, outing a child to their bigoted parents is probably not going to end well for the kid. Now, I'm unclear. It says it includes that, but I'm questioning what else is included in that. Like, I don't know if a teacher finds out, or someone in student services find out that the kid is gay. If that's included, I would hope not, because nobody has to declare to student services that they're heterosexual. So I'm hoping that this wouldn't be a problem. Anyway, the bill was introduced by State Reps DJ Swearengin, lovely name, of course a Republican, and Sarah Carruthers, also a Republican. Shocking. If people are out and they don't have supportive parents, there is an epidemic of LGBTQ youth homelessness. Dara Atkinson, an activist with Trans Ohio, told News 5 Cleveland. There are parents who don't affirm their children and then decide that they would like them to not be their children. Which, yes, that, like I said earlier, it's, it won't end well for the child. For students that have queer families, it is then not okay in early childhood curriculum to discuss queer families as part of the community, they added. Carruthers claims, however, that there is no hidden agenda and that this is about advocating for parental rights. It's funny how they don't give a shit about parental rights when the parents actually support their child in something that these fuckers don't think should exist. Suddenly, parental rights don't exist. She claims it is not anti-LGBTQ and that nothing can be done these days without offending others. Now, there are people who are offended by anything and everything. That is true. But we're not offended because of any, made up reason. We're worried that these kids who have transphobic parents will lash out at said child, or kick them out, or kill them, or abuse them till they're dead. All sorts of wonderful options. So, how is that being easily offended? It's not. Let's see. And then, of course, there is the fact that, like they mentioned, that, if you have a friend who has two mommies or two daddies, then you're basically saying that they can't discuss their families with their friends at school. And that's just dumb. I mean, kids talk. Kids talk about their home lives. Kids have sleepovers and then talk about what happened at said sleepover. So how does that benefit anyone? That basically tells kids that they're not allowed to be friends with people like that, or how do you stop them? Now, granted, they did give incidental discussion, or however they phrased it, that would be allowed. So I guess, having a bunch of kids talking about it would fall under that exception. I would hope so. Like I said, that's a nice loophole, and hopefully people can can use it. So yeah. The bill is now on its way to the desk of Republican Governor Mike DeWine as advocacy groups call for him to veto it. And do you really think that he's going to veto that? No, I don't. We are deeply disappointed that the legislature decided once again to attack LGBTQIA plus youth by passing yet another bill that will make schools less safe and inclusive for queer and transgender people, said a statement from Kaleidoscope Youth Center, an LGBTQ plus youth center. Equality Ohio Executive Director Dwayne Stewart added, overnight, when most school-age children are asleep, the legislature rushed through another shameful attack on LGBTQ plus youth. Okay, so, I really don't know how. I really think that this is a large loophole that you could drive a semi through. So hopefully it's not as stifling as these advocates think it will be. But it's not great. It isn't great because if a kid, now maybe this is an incidental reference, but if a kid were to ask their teacher about their spouse, which that's a thing, little kids are inquisitive, they want to know about their teacher, and their spouse is the same sex. I assume that falls under incidental reference. But the fact that you can have sex ed, we're going back to the days of sex ed when heterosexual relations was the only thing talked about. And even then, I mean, depending on, even then, it sounds like even sex ed is under attack even for heterosexuals, because again, sexual content is teaching children how to put a condom on using a banana. Is that considered sexual content? I mean, it falls under the STI exception. Because why else would you use a condom? Well, also not to get someone pregnant, true. But it also has the added benefit of not passing on a sexually transmitted disease. So I would think that would be an exception. That would fall under the exception. But yeah, how much can sex ed teachers talk about? Because, they seem to think that which is bizarre, that people seem to think that anyone who falls under the LGBTQ plus umbrella that it's only a sexual component, because, love isn't a thing unless you're heterosexual or something. So I'm really curious how this is going to affect the curriculum. Because even, like I said, even heterosexual relationships in sex ed are going to be affected by this bill. So yeah, I honestly don't know. But like I said, hopefully it's not as bad as I think it will be. That the legislatures left it open enough that people can get around, and educators can get around these rules by invoking these exceptions. Because, let's face it, Heterosexual people get abused. Homosexual people get abused. Trans people get abused. So you can work that into your curriculum and pass it off as one of these exceptions. So hopefully educators are going to be smart enough to manage to get around these exceptions and be able to continue to properly teach about how humans human. And as I said, for someone in 3rd grade, I honestly don't know what you think is being taught in 3rd grade or even kindergarten. I mean, seriously, nobody is teaching anyone how to have sex that young. That is just not a thing. That stuff doesn't even begin to happen. Like I said, the condom on a banana. That sort of thing doesn't happen until at least puberty. So, yeah, I just do not see. This to me sounds like it's a law just so Republicans can feel better that they're going after the evil trans and gays and the alphabet mafia or whatever they want to call it, instead of actually doing any damage, except for the part about outing the kids to their parents. Because again, if you're outing your kids, if you have to tell the parents that their kid is trans, then there's probably a good reason why the kid isn't telling. Now, like I said, some kids might fear how their parents will react and their parents are totally cool with it or get over it pretty quick. But there are also plenty of parents out there who will attack their kid. Maybe they think they can beat it out of them, or they just think that they're become less than human and it's perfectly reasonable to beat them, or they kick them out, or whatever it is. So the teaching part is probably not going to be affected much, because again, I think you can get around it with those exceptions. But outing the kids to their parents, no, that's the only part of the bill that is just anyway. That is all I have for this video, and with that, I will see you guys in the next one.